Okay. All right, guys, it looks like we are live on YouTube. There we go. Okay. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Oh my goodness. What an evening a day it has been. It's actually been a good day. And so this is no complaint on anything. And I just realized I don't have my book. I don't have my book handy. We are wrapping up our conversation on the four agreements. The four agreements. And this is, we're going to be here tonight. And then next Thursday night, we will dig into the fifth agreement, which actually is a separate book. It's called Be Skeptical, But Listen. And so I if you don't have it, I say pick it up, because it'll be the first time that we are going through the text. And I'm looking so I can give you dates. So we have 2 more weeks together. So we'll spend the next 2 weeks on the fifth agreement and just kind of wrapping out the year, maybe giving you some soul work for the break. We're going to take a break through from the week of Thanksgiving all the way through to the new year. And so it's a chance for us to just kind of wind down and like get centered and rest. I'm Reverend Sherry James, and I'm the creator of the Bible Hangout. This metaphysical Bible study has been going on for 7 years. 7 years, right? 2013, 7 years. And we have done a number of different studies, and we started this year with the pandemic. We started with a focus on metaphysical Bible interpretation specifically, which is what it was about in the first place. And then we transitioned to talk about the path to wealth and the 4 agreements. And so I'll be sending out a survey soon to get your input on where we should be concentrating for 2021, because we will be rethinking everything. I mean, so much has been shaken up in this year. Like so much has been changed in terms of just how we do life. What's important to us. I mean, all of these things have been shifted because of the pandemic, and it's, so we'll be diving into that, looking for new ways to come. Okay, always do your best. Always do your best. This is one of my favorite lessons. Now, we have done the 4 agreements before inside the Bible Hangout, but this particular time I wanted to kind of focus a little bit differently, because we have come through the election. We didn't know what the outcome was going to be. We still don't 100% know the outcome. We have a guess, but everyone is cautious. They're either cautiously pessimistic or they're cautiously optimistic, but everybody's cautious. And I know that on election day, I turned everything off. I went to the polls. I had planned to turn in my mail-in ballot, but when I got there was no line. And so I decided, vote, and so they spoiled my mail-in ballot and gave me an in-person ballot. And so I went through the voting process physically that day. And when I left, I just kind of let's let it go, because we don't know what this outcome is going to be. And we're going to have to, whatever the outcome is, we are going to do our best, no matter what. And this series was chosen specifically because of the election, because we have, there's a book called Conscious Living, and I think I mentioned it before. We're going to do a series on it, and it's really powerful. In the book is Gay Hendricks is the author, and what he says in the text, and I agree, but I like his language, is that whatever it is that you are getting, whatever result you're getting in your health, your wealth, your happiness, whatever, it is a result that you are committed to getting. Whatever result you're getting, it is a result that you are committed to getting. Now, you may have hidden agreements that are driving your results that you may not be present to. For example, in the book, he tells a story of a woman who, in 40 years of driving, had had 29 accidents. So that's, almost an accident more than one accident not quite one accident per year. And he said to her, because she was, saying, it's just not safe out there. And he said, no, you're committed to having accidents. And she said, no, I'm not. And he said, well, let's review the facts. In 40 years of driving, you've had 29 accidents, fender benders, dents, ding-ups, whatever. So if this is happening, then you may not be present to the agreement that you're making, that you're fulfilling in terms of the accidents, but it's absolutely clear that you're committed to having these accidents. And so that was really a wake-up call for her, and for her to really get that my results prove what I'm committed to getting. And so that's why this series was so important to me to reintroduce during the election season, because we're waking up big emotions. I don't know a person who has not had some kind of strong feeling one way or the other. Even if they haven't voiced it aloud, they've had an opinion about the direction that the country should go in. I've had people who are deep into this teaching, meaning they're not newbies to this teaching, who that I've had conversations with, who've shared how much this has affected them, and the tears that have come, or the distraught that has come, or the strong emotion, or the despair. And what I know about feelings is that unchecked feelings then turn into agreements. Right? It's kind of like if you eat one cookie, it's always easy to eat that next one because you've now revved up a magnet for it. Your taste buds are conditioned for it. Well, just like you have physical taste buds, you have mental taste buds, you have emotional taste buds. And as you play with emotions of despair and play with emotions of feeling distraught, those emotions then make it easier for you to feel it again. And so I wanted to just really focus around, how do you make conscious agreements for what it is that you want? Conscious agreements for what it is that you want. And so that's where we are. And so our focus is on always do your best. What are you getting, honey? Okay. Don't come over here again, okay? Go. Okay, very good. So always do your best. So always do your best is really about a philosophy. It's an agreement, but it's a philosophy of life. It's about a philosophy about how you show up in the world. Hey, Jordan, please take that upstairs. Okay, thanks, baby. It's a philosophy about how you show up in the world, and it makes a difference in terms of what you get. And we talked about this a little bit when we were doing be impeccable with your word. I think we talked about it there. But we're going to pick it up again. This is like what doing your best does. So the other piece of why this was important was that I knew that coming through this election cycle, that I really wanted to equip people to make good decisions and to be conscious of the agreements that they are making and that are driving their results. And also there was this need to give a reminder that even if your candidate did not make it through to completion, right, to into office, even if that happened, that it was important for you to understand that no one has a lock on opportunity for you, because that's a place that I think we go to when we're advocating for a candidate or for a position, is the belief that the opposite is somehow going to bring us less good. And the truth is that opportunity, good, all of it is everywhere evenly present. What is different is what classroom am I getting my lessons in? And so that was the place that I got to when I walked out of the polling place. I cast my ballot and I let it go. Then the next thing was, okay, so whatever the outcome of it is, my good is still everywhere evenly present. My good is not contingent on a specific outcome of an election. My good is contingent on my ability to recognize that that opportunity comes from God, and like God, opportunity is everywhere evenly present. And so I prefer to have my life lessons in a classroom that looks like a world that works for everyone, but I can get my lessons in a classroom in a world that does not work for everyone. Like either way, but I do have my preference. And so when I'm advocating for my preference, I'm never once thinking that I can't learn and become who I need to be if things don't go the way that I want it to go. And so it's very, very important to realize that no one has ever held you back. No one has ever kept you in poverty or kept you out of a specific place in society. The visible supply in our world is inexhaustible, right? Everywhere you look, there are rows and rows of food on our shelves. There's more than enough of everything. I mean, you look at the number of bees, not just bees, but species of bees. Like I think there's something like 20 some thousand species of bees. And they are, there's no end to it. And so, but that's the visible supply. The invisible supply is actually inexhaustible. And so it's realizing that I have access to this invisible supply, because everything that you see on earth is made from one substance. It's one substance out of which all things proceed. And so no one but you has control over that substance. And so if you dare to think in alignment with what it is that you desire, then you may have whatever it is that you desire. And the thing is that someone seeming to hold something back from you, there's no such thing. There is no such thing. Reverend John used to say there's gold dust in the air, and my thing is you ought to have it. But the way that you get the gold dust out of the air and into your experience is through the agreements that you make. There's gold dust in the air. This is an abundant universe. But the way that you appropriate what it is that you desire is that you change the way that you think to think in alignment with what it is that you want. You change what you think so that it is in alignment with what it is that you want. What do I mean by that? If you desire health, you've got to have thinking that is in accord with health. If you desire wealth, you've got to have thinking that's in accord with wealth. And here's the thing, you've got to do there may be a point of like digging, researching, understanding, expanding in order to have that in your experience, right? You have the level of wealth that your thinking has allowed. You have the level of health that your thinking has allowed. And so in order to have more, then you must then expand the way that you think, expand the way that you look at it. And when you expand the way that you look at it, then you expand your experience with it. And so it's really, really powerful. And let me stop there and ask her any questions about that, comments, responses. And I'm going to check for comments as well.
I can't find the regular charger for the iPad.
Okay, it's in the bathroom upstairs. Go. sometimes we make ourselves small. And I bet that this was maybe how the Israelites who lived, or the Hebrews who lived in occupied Palestine felt, the Jews felt with the Roman occupation. Because in that environment, in an instant, you could lose your life. Meaning it was arbitrary, some of the ways that the Romans treated the Jews whose territory they were occupying. There were stories of crosses that lined streets, right? It was an intimidation factor. So this was our form of capital punishment. And so there's a story, I think it's in Josephus, but it's in some historical account, where there was as many as 2,000 crosses, just lined up. I mean, that's an intimidation factor. That's saying, listen, if you don't do it the way that I say that you ought to do it, this is waiting for you. This cross is waiting for you. It was, your life was not necessarily your own, and it could be taken from you. And so sometimes the response to that kind of oppression, to that kind of heinous abuse, is to small yourself up, to shrink yourself. But that's not the way of God. That's not the way of God. That the way of God that increases the rule of the universe. Even if you never had a Bible, how would you know how God operated? You could look at how everything works. Everything starts from a small beginning and grows to a big expression. And the question of how big of an expression it grows is simply a matter of the person or the consciousness doing the thinking. If you have an apple, and inside of that apple is a single, 10 seeds, let's say. But inside of that seed, that could be an entire orchard. And so if you look at how everything that God does, because God is consistent and unchanging, right? God always, whatever God is ever doing, God is always doing. And so what's happening then when you are shrinking yourself is that you are actually working against the flow of the universe. The flow of the universe goes from small beginnings to big ends. And so your life is meant to look that way. Your money is meant to look that way. Your health is meant to look that way. Your health should not decline over time. Your health should get better over time. Your money should not decline over time. Your money should get better over time. Same with your relationships. These things should get better over time, because the nature of the universe is to start with a small beginning and then blossom to a full and luxurious end. That's the nature of the universe. And so you can look at that life, just by living, must increase itself. Life multiplies itself. And so it is forever becoming more, and it's going to have to become more if it's going to be at all. And so this is how you know that God is biased toward your success, because God doesn't win when you shrink. God doesn't win when you shrink. And so you need to make up your mind that this is true. You need to make up your mind that this is true. And this is so important. It's so important, because many times that we affirm it, but we haven't made up our minds. There was a point at which I desired a new car. The car that I had was not doing so well, but I had these reasons why I couldn't just go out and get a new car. Well, there's this going on and that going on, and these resources are over here. And basically I had not made up my mind. Once I made up my mind and I just began to take whatever step I could take that was in front of me, everything began to move and work in my favor. And literally my car worked, the one that I got rid of, until I took it to the recycling lot. Literally, like the car, it had gotten to the place where I thought the transmission was going to fall out of the car, not just conk out, but fall out of the car. It literally worked until I drove it. I was able to get it up on the scales so that they could measure the weight of the car, right, that was being turned in, and then drive it over to the lot where they pick it up with the magnet and do the crushing and all of that, right? That it literally drove and sputtered at the moment that I handed the car over to the, I don't know, it's not called the impound lot, but wherever they recycle car, whatever that's called, where they recycle junkyard, let's call it. That literally right there. It's like when you make up your mind, everything that needs to happen for whatever outcome you're working toward begins to work in your favor. What happens when you don't make up your mind is that sometimes you take action, but it's not action that's coming from a made up mind. And so it cannot produce success. And so you need to make up your mind that God is biased toward your success. Make up, just decide that it is, and let it be so. And so those first three agreements, be impeccable with your word, don't make assumptions, don't take things personally. They're about getting your mind right. But it's not just getting your mind right. That's a really important part of it. And we spend a lot of time talking about that because it's a place where many people fall down in the process. But the place that you must back up thinking with acting. And so you can think of it this way. Your thinking starts your good on its way to you from the invisible to the visible. If you imagine that whatever good you desire is sitting on some conveyor belt in invisible spiritual escrow. Images are great. That's not necessarily how it works, but it helps the mind put itself around it. And your good is sitting on an invisible conveyor belt. The more you think about it, the closer it comes to you, right? It gets next to you. What completes the process is your personal action. And so what the personal action does is that it makes you a container, a receiver for the good that you have sought. And what I have seen happen with many metaphysicians, many people in the New Thought movement, is that they focus on thinking, and they do not back it up with action. And so the good is right next to them. It's I don't know if you guys ever saw Interstellar. It's a great film. One of my favorite Christopher Nolan films, and it's about parallel worlds, right? And how these worlds connect up against one another. And the Matt Damon character goes to a level of a dimension of consciousness, and he can see his daughter, but he can't interact with her and communicate with her. And he ends up pushing like a book off the shelf, and so she's like, okay, and she picks up the book, right? This idea that like it's like right there, but because of how you see the world, you can't see it. And so the good that you seek is next to you, just like that. The moment that you think about it, that you give thanks for it, that you are joyful for it, it is right there. It's yours for the taking if you take action. If you take action. If you don't take action, it stays in spiritual escrow. If you don't take action, you have it, but acting is how you possess it. Thinking claims it, acting possesses it. Thinking claims it, acting possesses it. And so what you want to start to do is to put your whole self into present action. right? You want just whatever you have, you want the whole self. See, because you cannot act where you're not, you cannot act where you have been, and you cannot act where you're going to be. You have to act right here, right now. This is the only place where you can do something. The only place where you can do something about your experience. I can't, whatever I think, I can't do anything about the actions and the results from yesterday because we're not sitting in yesterday. You can't go back to yesterday and act, and you can't go forward to tomorrow to act. The only place where you can take some kind of positive action that's going to make a difference is right now in this present moment. And so you want to drop your full self into present moment action. And so what that means is that you're going to have to pull your attention from the past, which generally is circled around regret or guilt or worry, and the future, which is also worry, negative anticipation, right? Or even if they're the positive ones, if you're riding on the high from the past or riding on the potential high from the future, the point is that you want to bring your attention back to this moment because this is the only place that you can act. This is the only place that you can do something positive to move forward in your experience. And so this is where you want to concentrate your energy. Wanda says, yes, you have to start thinking from the end and not concerning yourself with the how. The how was not your business. How was not your business. So, and again, this is just back on this point of don't worry about tomorrow and don't bother with yesterday. Whether the work yesterday was well done or ill done, if you didn't do your best yesterday, right? There, you cannot go back and do your best today, right? The best that you can do is today's best, right? That's the best that you can do. I cannot do yesterday's best. I can only do today's best. I cannot do tomorrow's best. I can only do today's best. And so my job is do today's best. Don't try to do the work, next week's work next week or tomorrow's work today. Do today's work today. What can get done today? Sometimes we're waiting for a change in environment in order to take action, right? If you like to exercise, but you like to exercise outside, well, I'll get it back together when I can go outside. Or you like to go to the gym. Well, I'm really a gym kind of person, so I can't really do anything until the gym's reopen. You are not waiting on a change of environment. Sometimes you think, I'm going to decorate my house when I'm living in a better house. I'm going to take better care of my car when I get a new one. I'm going, like, whatever, it's always putting it off to some future, to some other outer configuration. And what you want to do is do your best right now, because the truth is that there is a way that you can act, that you can take action that actually changes your present environment. There is a level of acting that when you do it, can change your present environment. And the way that you do that is to always do your best. When you do your best, you shift your present environment. You change the atmosphere. Have you ever been in a room with somebody giving their best? You ever been in a room, like if you think about, I remember going to a Janet Jackson concert. This is years ago. And I don't even remember which tour it was. But the level of showmanship was unlike anything that I had seen in recent memory. And I mean, this young lady brought it down. I mean, like just everything. It felt like a Broadway level production. I mean, the costume changes, not just for her, but I'm talking about all the other folk in the show, right? The pyrotechnics, the acrobatics, the I forgot what it's called when they use the hoist and things like that. I mean, the aerial dynamics. It was one of the most dynamic shows that that I can remember. And I remember just taking it in, and it was like, just be in this moment, be in this energy, right? Because this energy is, I mean, it's why people have quote unquote fans, because the energy is so electrifying. It touches you at like a soul level. And so when doing your best does that, it lifts the room. It changes the atmosphere. I mean, I don't remember. I think we were in the Staples Center, right? But the Staples Center isn't inherently an electrifying arena, right? There's nothing electrifying about it, but it's how you come into the space and fill up the space. You know, I had a chance to, and I love this artist, so this is no shade to this artist at all. But I had a chance to go to a USC women's basketball game, and they were doing it where this is part of their effort, I guess, to get people in the door. And so they brought in gospel artist Brian Courtney Wilson, who's excellent. But there are different levels of artistry, right? Because it's not about just can you sing, it's about the artistry. It's about how much do you fill up the space, right? And so what happened with Brian is that we were in whatever the pavilion is called. I'm about to say Hofstra, but that's University of Pennsylvania, my undergrad. That, you know, we were sitting in the arena, and the show felt small. The show felt very, very small. Again, this is no shade on him. He's a different kind of artist. This may be exactly where his absolute best and what he wants to give. So this is not to take anything from him, because I really am a big fan of his. But what I'm saying is that when you fill up the space, it changes the atmosphere. It shifts the consciousness in the room, in the space. And so when you come in and you do your best, it's energizing for everybody there. It's enlivening for everybody there, because they can feel it, they can perceive it, and it sparks, it inspires them, right? It inspires them to like, I gotta get up and do it. You know, like when I left that Janet Jackson concert, it was like, okay, I don't sing and dance, but how do I take this magic and do this in my world, right? Like what that energy where you bring just your highest and your best, and your showmanship is so big and so amazing and so incredible that it's like it ignites, it sets people on fire, right? And so this is what always doing your best is about, is that it sets you on fire, and then you in turn set other people on fire. And so you want to begin to do what you can do where you are, and do all that you can do where you are, right? Sometimes we make ourselves small, but what you want to start to do is do your best to bring your full self to the present moment. That's how you make sure you do your best, and do all that you can do, because you only move forward in life by being bigger than your present place. You only move forward in life. Any person who leaves undone any work pertaining to the place where they exist never outgrow the place where they are. And so the world moves forward because of people who fill up their present place. And so it's taking a moment, just thinking about it. Am I filling up my present place? Am I filling it? Have I outgrown it? Right? Am I bigger now than my present circumstances? Right? And so you want to begin to ask yourself that, because that's what you're reaching for, right? You want to be a bigger vessel for God to speak through, for God to show up through, for God to express through. And so you want to fill up your present space. You want to do the absolute most that you can right where you are. And doing the most where you can, right where you are with what you have, is your only way out of where you are. It is your only way out of where you are. And if you don't do it, even if you advance, you will fall back. And we have all had experiences where we moved forward, right? Got something that we didn't yet have the consciousness for and couldn't hold on to it. The way that you develop the consciousness for it is that you outgrow where you are. You just flat out outgrow where you are. And you know this from life. How does a child get new clothes? They outgrow the clothes that they're in. And so using the metaphor of clothes, some people never outgrow the metaphorical clothes that they're wearing. You know, they never outgrow gossip. They never outgrow drama. They never outgrow not having enough. They never outgrow moving from one illness to the next. And so whatever it is that you want out of your life, whatever it is, if it's ill health, if it's ill relationships, if it's lack of money, if it's whatever it is, if it's the house you live in, the way out is through. The way out is through, meaning I outgrow this space. This space can no longer contain me at where I am right now. And so I must have something bigger. I must have something greater because I have outgrown where I am. And so the question is, what do you need to outgrow? And what are you willing to outgrow? Because sometimes people, you know, to outgrow where you are, you've got to do your best. To outgrow where you are, you have got to show up giving your best on a daily basis. Doesn't mean you don't have a day off here and there, but you're trying to get a result. Doesn't mean you don't have a day off, but you're trying to get a result. Whatever you consistently do, those of you that in any field, actually, it doesn't matter, any field, you know that the more you do what you do, the better you get at doing it. If you do nails, hair and nails, you know, there's some people who do some hair and nails that are just, you walk out of there like, whew, I am good, right? The way they get better is to do more. And so if they work 3 days a week, especially in the beginning, you know, once you get a mastery, then you can pull back and not do as much and have, you know, a better result than say somebody, a novice coming in working way more hours. But in that beginning, you got to come at it every day. You got to come at it every day, doing a little bit of something every day, because what you're building up is a mastery, and you're building up so that you can express your unique voice through it. You know, and so you want to give your best so that you can outgrow where you are. Don't you want more than where you are? Maybe that's a question I should ask. Do you want, this is a real legitimate question that I'm asking. Do you want more than what you're experiencing right now? Don't everybody answer at once. This really is not a rhetorical question. Do you desire more than what you are having right now? Wanda, what about you? Do you want more than what you are experiencing right now?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in 2 classes. I have 2 classes at CUT. I go to midday meditation at my church. I do CUT's midday meditation. I come to the Metaphysical Bible Hangout. So my answer is a resounding yes.
Yeah.
And I'm putting in the work.
Yes, yes, yes. Gloria, what about you? Do you want more than what you're experiencing right now?
Definitely. And I'm working in different areas to prepare myself in a lot of different areas for the future. So yes, definitely.
Wonderful. Dr. Brenda, what about you?
Oh, absolutely. I want that Oprah life.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a level of living that feels magical. Like many of us have had magical moments, and we've taken them as they're few and far between, or they come every now and then. But what if I told you that's how you were meant to live? That's how you were meant to live. Gloria says, I want a well that never runs dry, and you have it. And the way that you access it is always do your best. If you come to the table and you bring your best, one, you're going to outgrow where you are. And so it's just sitting down and doing the work. If you ask the question, Spirit will answer. If you ask the question, Spirit will answer. Spirit, is this the best that I can do? This is the question I'm going to be asking over the break. You know, when I take a break from the Bible Hangout during Christmas and Thanksgiving, the question I ask is this the best that I can do? What better can I do? Right? That's the question, because I'm not meant to stay in this space. I'm meant to continue, and you too are meant to continually evolve to the next level of living. If you ask the question, Spirit will answer. Sometimes we think we won't get an answer, but just ask. You know, you could just ask. Wanda says, yes, if you ask, seek, knock, the question, Spirit will answer. 100%. That is it. And so you want to bring your whole self to your present moment and do your absolute best, 100% best. And so you have to become bigger than the comfort zone that you have put yourself in. You have to become bigger than the comfort zone that you put yourself in. And I want to make this very, very practical. The way that you bust out of your comfort zone is that you make every day a successful day. That's the way you break out. So a day is either successful or it's a day of failure. It's no in between. And the successful days in life get you what you want. And if every day is a failure, you set yourself up to make your home in a comfort zone. And so doing your best means that if there is something that may be done today, do it. What's crazy is that you cannot see the consequences. I think that if we could see the consequences of the things that we leave undone, the consequences of not doing your best is that you make your home in your comfort zone. I literally was sitting in a room with a businessman earlier this week, having a conversation, and we were talking about some filming stuff. And I gave a reference for a filmmaker, who could help with some live streaming. And the businessman called the person and said, you know, hey, I'm looking, Sherry recommended you, blah, blah, blah. And the person hemmed and hawed and said, okay, so let's connect next week. And so the businessman moved on. Like, I operate on today. Can you come out here today, tomorrow, tonight? Like, when can you get here? You basically, the job, the gig would belong to this person simply on the strength of my recommendation. But because the person was not willing to act in the moment, and they weren't saying no because of work, the reason that they gave was the election. That's called waiting for a change of environment in order to do your best. But you do your best and it changes the environment. And so we really cannot see. We really don't even see like all the different little results. And the thing is that God is working on your behalf. God is always, always, always working on your behalf because you've been sowing seeds. You have been sowing seeds of prosperity. You've been sowing seeds of abundance. You've been sowing seeds of plenty. You've been sowing seeds of health. So much could be riding on some simple thing that you need to do today, that if you did it, it would fling open 35 doors of opportunity and another 45 down the road. But because you didn't do the one simple act, those doors don't open and they just get delayed. You can never know all the combinations that supreme intelligence is making for you in your life, world, and affairs. And so your neglect or failure to do your best may cause a delay in getting what you want. And so you want to do every day all that can be done that day. All that can be done. And to be clear, I'm not saying overwork yourself. This is not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about where you are just exhausted and you have run yourself ragged, because you also, when you have run yourself ragged, you are not a vessel for spirit. You're always a vessel for spirit. You're not the most effective vessel for spirit. When you're tired and exhausted and don't feel like it, you even got a little body lean to it, you know, when it's like, hey, how much God can come through. So this is not about overworking yourself. This is not about trying to get as many things done in a day that you can get done. This is about a successful day. And the way that you have a successful day is that you make every action successful. Every action is either successful or it's a failure. It's no in between. Every action. And so a successful action means that I carried it through from the beginning, through the middle, to the end. So many times what makes us feel fatigued at the end of a day is that we didn't have enough successful actions. We got to the end of the day, and of the 10 things that we needed to get done, 10 are left undone. And we might have gotten something done towards it, but we didn't finish it all the way through. And so our energy feels drained. We don't necessarily perceive it in this way. We just feel like, oh my God, it was a long day. Oh my goodness, it was a long day. No, what happened was that I had a bunch of undones. And so what you want to do at the beginning of the day is you want to figure out what success looks like, because you may be working on a long range project, right? So you may be working on a project that's going to take you 50 days to get done. What you need to decide is, what does success look like today? And so you don't get started working on it until you've defined what success looks like. Well, success looks like, I'm making this up because I'm working on a project now. Success looks like me having a conversation with the head person at Downtown Women's Center. That's what success looks like. Okay, great. Now, when I get to, that's not the only piece of the puzzle to complete the project, but it's the piece I'm finishing right now. And so I can allow myself to feel successful because I followed through on the action from beginning to middle to end. Oh, we got a comedy fundraiser coming up. And so I'm going to make phone calls to these particular organizations to ask them to purchase tickets. So then success is following that action all the way through and making those phone calls. Or if it's a lot of them, I can do 10 phone calls today. That's what it, so every action is either successful or it's a failure. And when you set up your day where you have too many failures, it's essentially an inefficient day. It drains you of your energy. Sometime I just saw a comment that I think is actually going to point to my next comment. Wanda says, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. Stay sowing seeds, always do your best. Yes. So many times, or sometimes, the reason that we don't want to do our best is that we are fearful that it won't work out on our behalf. I don't want to go all out and then this thing doesn't work out. I don't want to give everything I've got. And then I'm, so I'm kind of sort of holding back because I'm afraid of the outcome. You don't control the harvest at the harvest stage. You control the harvest by controlling the seed. You control the harvest by controlling the seed. Anyone who's done any kind of performance, if you've done speeches or singing or acting or whatever, you know that the magic that happens in the moment only happened because of what you did in practice. In fact, because there are 100% magical moments that happen on stage where something otherworldly takes place, almost a transcendent kind of thing. You've seen those performances. You think about I just watched this too. I think it was 1984, the Motown 25 special. And I know we're all old enough to remember this, that moment that Michael Jackson moonwalked across the stage. And, there may have been kids moonwalking, but let me tell you something, little girls like me down south had not seen anybody moonwalk. And it was this moment where it felt like time just stood still, right? Magical moments 100% happen on stage, right? They happen, but they don't happen absent the practice. That all of the practice, all of the doing your best before you get on stage opens you up to that magical moment on stage. And so it's you don't control, let me say this, you control the harvest, you control what happens on stage by what happens in practice. You control what happens in the harvest by controlling the seed. The seed is where your control is. And so really your best work is to put your head to the grindstone and plant seeds. Seeding. Just stay in a seeding capacity. And then it will be like you move into that magical space because you've taken your attention off of the result. And now you're free to accept whatever results come. And because you're doing your best, the results are powerful. Something that's important to know is that your best is subjective. You may wake up and not feel well, may not feel physically well. And so your best that day might be self-care and not the grind that you're doing to move things forward. Your best on any given day in one instance might be super high quality, top of the line, setting off fireworks. And then your best on other days might be just, you showed up. I didn't quit. I'm coming with a good attitude. I don't feel like doing this work, but I'm gonna have a good attitude about it. I'm not gonna be, grumpy McGrumbles. I'm gonna come and do my best that way. The reason that, and so you want to cut yourself some slack, meaning that, again, this is not about overworking yourself, holding yourself to an unreasonable standard. This is about making successful actions. But the reason that you're doing all of this is that you are trying to make yourself a bigger vessel for God to flow through. Your objective is to give vent to the Spirit, right? It's, I don't have a vent that you guys can see, but you have vents in your house that the air blows through, right? If you have a central air. And so the vent, depending on how the shutters of the vent are angled, will determine the level of air that comes through. And so you could actually chill the air, but slightly close the vent, and it will change the texture of the air coming through, even though the air coming through is very cold. right? And so but you can open the vent, you can fully open the vent, and the air coming through is powerful, right? And so just like that, you are a vent for spirit. You are a vent for spirit. And so what you want to do is to make yourself the biggest vent possible. Right? That's what you're working for. That's what doing your best is about. Something that Miguel says in the book, he says the best way to say I love you, God, is not just to say I love you, God, it's to live your life doing your best. I thought that was so powerful, because what happens when you do your best is that with your actions, you are saying, God, I intend to make myself a bigger vessel for you to express through. That's what's happening. When you do your best, that is you sending a signal to the supreme intelligence of the universe. Hey, you got a bigger vessel to express through. You got a bigger vessel to express through. Come through me. I'm open. I'm willing to have greater impact. And so you come doing your very best. And you know, you are, take someone like I always use this example, but I want to find a different one. You take someone like a Serena Williams. Someone like a Russell Wilson, because I learned some good stuff about him that shifted my atmosphere. Russell Wilson, if you don't know who he is, Russell Wilson is a star quarterback in the NFL, and he's the quarterback of the Seahawks. And I think the Seahawks are doing pretty well this season. And there was an article. Well, first of all, I read a book by his trainer, Trevor Mowad, his mental fitness trainer, Trevor Mowad, called It Takes What It Takes. And he talked about not just about his relationship with Russell, but that was included in the book. And he just talked about the mental toughness and stuff that Russell does. And one of the things that he said that he does, so Russell, they won the Super Bowl, and then they came back, and this was the year that the coach made the call, and they were like right on the one, like in the end zone, like all you gotta do is just fall over into the end zone and make the touchdown. And they make the decision not to give the ball to Marshawn Lynch, who they call beast mode. I mean, he's called beast mode. Give the ball to him. But for whatever reason, they didn't give the ball to him, and they basically missed the touchdown and lose the Super Bowl. This is a massive loss. It was 16 million. Some people were watching this. Crazy. And so part of his recovery when in the off season is that he was like, okay, I got to get him out of Seattle. And so they chose to go to Manhattan Beach. And so he rented a house there. And then, he went through his off season. But what he did every morning for breakfast, and this changed how I do my breakfast. Every morning for breakfast, he had his assistants, not Russell, but the trainer, had his assistants gather all of the footage of Russell coming back from a setback, whether it was from a loss or defeat, whatever, and like game, reel, because athletes, they have a lot of tape on themselves. And every morning while he's eating his protein breakfast, he would watch one of the clips of him making a comeback from a setback. That changed it. So then that's what made me do this jar. That's what made me do this jar. And so that became how I do my breakfast, is that while I'm having my physical meal, I'm also having my psychological meal. So what Russell is allowing himself to be, right? Because this was a major defeat, basically being right there with the touchdown in your hand, and not, somebody makes the wrong play, but you're the quarterback, so you maybe went against your instincts and didn't give it to Marshawn Lynch, and so you've got to come back from there, right? You got to go through that experience and then come back and do your best. And the thing is that it clearly he's recovered from that, because we see what's happening this season. But if you look back at him in his early career, it isn't that he isn't a great player, wasn't that God was not expressing through him then. But the more that he conditions himself and takes care of himself, the bigger vent for spirit that he is able to become. Right. And so I just learned from an article, and I got to do some more research on it, that he spends $1 million on recovery in the off season, because his intention is to play until he's 45. And I thought, oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. And so he spends $1 million in the off season on self-care and recovery. I was like, oh, that's good. I got to spend my version of $1 million on self-care and recovery, because I'm trying to give my best. I'm trying to be here for the long run. So I got to take care of the vessel. So always do your best, because when you give your best, you make yourself, you transform yourself. You transform yourself. And the thing is that the purpose of you is to turn yourself into spirit, right? God put you here to turn yourself back into spirit. You're not here to suffer. You're here to transcend suffering. You are not here to suffer. Many of us follow Jesus. We are but some of us treat Jesus as if his light is a replacement for our light. And so Jesus, just like Jesus didn't need the Roman occupation to end in order for him to become the embodiment of God, neither do we need perfect exterior conditions in order to become the embodiment of God. Right where we are meant to turn ourselves back into spirit. And every time you do your best, you chip away at this human armor. Every time you do your best, you chip away. It's almost like a bird, a butterfly coming out of a cocoon. Every time you do your best, you chip away at the cocoon, the comfort zone that you have put yourself in. And so you want to give your best, because you are responsible for becoming the champion that God created you to be. You're responsible for that. That's nobody. I can't make you the champion that God wants you to be. That responsibility sits entirely in your hands. It belongs to no one else. And so I encourage you to make up your mind to do your best. Make that your highest priority. Any questions? Responses, aha moments. Constance says, I love the last paragraph. I'm going to personalize by starting with Constance. Do not be concerned about the future. Keep your attention on today. I'm going to print it and put it in a frame where I can see it every day. Today is the beginning of a new dream. Yes. Yes. Anybody else? Thank you guys for tonight. Thank you. So next week we will look at the fifth agreement, which is a different book. Fifth agreement, which is be skeptical, but listen. So if you want to pick that up, you can grab that from Amazon, and we will dig into the fifth agreement Thank you so much for tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless.